Okay, so we have we're speaking about the milas of rain and matar and ruchos and ovim and clouds and all different things. So the Gemara continues along those lines. So we're on Gimel Amid Beis, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines to the bottom. Amarava, Male Talga Latura, the snow Talga. In Aramaic, fellas, the tough and the shin are interchangeable. So you take the word Talga, you put a shin in there, it becomes a sheleg. The word tlas, right? The word tlas, you put it in a shin, becomes shalash. So, very often it is interchangeable. So snow is good for the mountains. Like 5 rain is for the earth. Shnemar, kila sheleg yoymar hu eretz. Now they're going to count 5 rains. Geshem 1, Matar 2, Geshem 3. Mitrois is lashon of Matar twice. Uzoi, that's so you have 5, a total of 5. Bamarava, Talga Lature. Talga, snow is good for the mountains. Mitra Rose Leilane, a strong rain is good for Leilane, is good for the trees. Mitra Nicha, Mitra Nicha, easygoing rain. Mitra Nicha, an easygoing rain, that's Lepeli, that's good for fruit. Or Pila, that's very thin rain, a misty rain, is Afilu Partsida de Tute Kala, it's even good for the seeds that are underneath. Rashi brings clods of earth, Tosfos brings rocks. The kids are different types of rains are good for different types of agriculture. Says the Mahanile, says my urpila. What does urpila mean? It's a nutrican, a contraction of the words oira pili. So either to awaken the cracks or to go ahead and stuff up the cracks in the ground. The Amarava, height subim rabbanon, a young Talmud Chacham, similar to the snow, the seeds that are underneath the ground. The kivin, the navid, once it begins to grow, it grows. Now we have often in Shas, fellows, we have the lashon of tzurbimei rabbanon, or just rabbanon. So what is a tzurbimei rabbanon? This is the makar in Shas for what a tzurbimei rabbanon is. Rashi says. Let's see Rashi, 4th line down. Tzurbimei rabbanon, bachar, charif. It's a sharp bachar. Kimo beitz the tzarivna, like eggs, mesech the beitza. Talmachacham zakin lekari tzumera. Alahumir rabbanon karilei. When the Gemara says Alahumir rabbanon, that's speaking about with someone's old. Tzumera rabbanon means a young talmachacham, a bachar, a young talmachacham. What? None of the above. V'amarava ha'it tzumera rabbanon. None of the above. The rasach that gets fahitzt, it's the Torah in him that is what is fahitzt him. Shnemar, like kol devari ke'esh no Hashem. My words are like Hashem is like Eish. A person when he's learning, he gets expansive. I think Rashi says sheyesh le roichiv leiv mitoich terasa. He has a tremendous expanse in himself as a result of his Torah. What's the key, guys? If you see him angry, be down the kafskos, because it's the Torah that's making him angry. It's nothing else. It seems that the Torah gets him good koch. Now, as we're going to see, despite that, the person should be in control of his emotions and not get angry. But the l'chayra, it's very interesting. The Rashi explains, why do we have to know this? In order to be down the kafskos. So let's say you see a person angry for some reason. The person gets angry. There's a reason for it, right? To get angry. Sunday 4 o'clock. What? Sunday at 4 o'clock. So yeah, Sunday. We know it very well. That feeling Sunday usually about 4 o'clock. If it's a 4 o'clock, yeah, there's a certain feeling at a certain time with certain people. My children always wanted to know on Sundays why at 6 o'clock is Daddy always in a bad mood. And if you want to know the answer, speak to Yehuda Kerpa. Says the Gemara. It says, "V'amar Rashi, Kol Talmud Chacham." She'enoi kosher kebarzel. Any Talmud Chacham is not hard like iron. Any Talmud Chacham. Shenemar ukepatish yefutzit sola. And like the hammer, it breaks sela. Now there's many different pshatim over here. The one I liked the most was Gevurah Sari. The Gevurah Sari is the Shagas Aryeh, the Torah Yevon. He wrote the Shagas Tshuva Shagas Aryeh, and he wrote a sefer called Torah Yevon on Chagiga and on Rosh Hashanah. He wrote a sefer called Gevurah Sari Amakas times. So he says like this. He says that sometimes the Talmud Chacham's got to be tough. If the Olam is fighting, he's got to be a tough guy. You got to be, you can't back down. You got to be like Kabar. You got to be like Barzil. You got to be strong like Barzil. So it doesn't mean, it means in certain situations where it takes a certain toughness, that's the way you have to be. Right? That's when it's called for. He has to place his sphere on the tzibur. He has to use his they say a Maisa over with Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe was very, very humble. Rav Moshe was incredibly humble person. I had a cousin who was a rabbi, and he went to this meeting of Rabbonim in MTJ, and he had a personal shayla to ask Rav Moshe afterwards. Mechel's cousin Dudi. He had a personal shayla to ask Rav Moshe afterwards. So he waited outside and waited. He's waiting. Finally goes inside, and in those days they didn't have a switch on the door. You needed a string to pull the lights. So Rav Moshe got a chair, and he was going on the table. He was very short to pull the string down. He wouldn't ask anyone to do it. He said it was just, he was just amazed. Like, but yet, somebody was once speaking to Moshe and learning. He got very, very, very fahitz, learning. And Moshe said, just remember who you're talking to. Yeah, and you know what I'm saying? It's not a stira. It's not a stira. Sometimes you gotta be like that. Sometimes you gotta be like that. Rav Abba Rav Ashi. Us, what? Yeah, they go upstairs. Rav Mishanfel is going to go lead the crowd. Amli Rav Abba Rav Ashi. Asay mehasa masnin Allah, anam mehacha masnin Allah. You learned it from there. We learned from here that a Talmud Chacham has to be like strong. Eretz Asher Avoneha Barzel, a land that what it's stone. It's stones are like iron. Al Tigri Aboneha. Don't read Aboneha, but Boineha. Her builders are what are like Barzel. The builders. Who are the builders of the world? Is this Talmidei Chachamim? Again, the purpose of creation is what is right. Is the world is the Talmidei Chachamim. We always speak at Yisrael, B'Shvil Yisrael Shnekorations, Polikim Shemaim Bezoretz. So the purpose of creation is the Torah and Yisrael. So obviously Torah is the purpose of the world. So therefore, the builders are the Talmidei Chachamim. Ravina Afilu Hachi. Despite the fact that you have to be what kosher kebarzel, mi boilel inshil melef nashe b'nichusa. A person should nonetheless go ahead and be the nichusa. Shenemar veheser kas milibecha. You should go ahead and remove kas from your heart. So despite there's a warning over here, you have to be a certain way, but don't let it become part and parcel of yourself. You have to be careful that even when you have to act in a certain way, that it should not become that way. Okay, now the Gemara has a tremendous digression over here. Really, I mean, it's after time. After all, the reason we're going to bring this in is because of a little statement at the end. But I like this digression very much, so we're going to all digress together because I hope you have phones. I sent something out, very nice thing. We're going to go through a piece that I saw today in the Mesifta. I liked it very, very much. So Amar Shmuel Achmeni Amar Yonasan. Shloisha shalu shloika hoigen. 3 people they asked incorrectly. They davened or they asked incorrectly. The Shnayim hishivu kahoigen. 2 of them were answered correctly. Le'echad hishivu shloika hoigen. And 1 of them was answered what? Not correctly. Ve'eluhein. Who were the 3? Eliezer Eved Avram. The Shol ben Kish, also known as Shol HaMelech. The Yiftach HaGiladi. And Yiftach HaGiladi. The one you're probably not so familiar with is Yiftach. Yiftach was one of the Shaiftim. He was one of the Shaiftim. He was not known as a tremendous Talmud Chacham, but he was a warrior. And there was a war with Bnei Ammon, and he was called to come help them. He came back. They had driven him away. He came back to help them, and he went to war. And he said, the first thing that comes out of my house will be brought as a carbon. Unfortunately for him, it was his daughter. Okay, so that's the incident over here. So let's see the other incidents. We'll see Bez Hashem some Torah on this. Eliezer Avraham. Where does we see Eliezer Avraham asked Shloika Hoigen? Improperly the Chsiv. So he's going to find a wife for Yitzchak, right? He's going to find a wife for Yitzchak. Comes to the well. The naira that I say to her, Hatina Kadech, go ahead. Right? That's the one that you've proven for my master. Now he left it open, guys. Right? He just said naira, which naira comes first. He left it open for chance. Yochel afilu chigeres, could have been mat, even a chigeres, a cripple. Afilu suma, even a blind person. So he is Shaloi Kahagin, but a Shiva Kahagin Bistam Rivka. And he was answered correctly. Shol ben Kish Dechsev. But now this is about the battle against Goliath. Goliath is coming out, guys. He is cursing Klal 40 days in a row. Came day and night. Beside time to say Kriya Shema, he's cursing Hashem, and everyone is petrified. They're petrified. He was a very, very scary person. And Shaul and Shaul says the following: this is what David was told. The person that smites him, the melech will make very wealthy. And not only that, but he'll go ahead and give his own daughter to him as a wife. Yochel afilu eved, afilu mamzer, right? Even though maybe it's an eved or a mamzer. It's no havamina that a blind person or chigeres, right? Because they couldn't possibly go to war. But I might think even an eved or a mamzer. So Heshiva Kohayigin, he was answered correctly in his dam loy David, and he ended up David. Now notice, guys, they switched gears on us, right? Oh, here they didn't say chigeres asuma, but they didn't say eved or mamzer by Rivka. It just said chigeres asuma. It did not say eved or mamzer by Rivka. Maybe it will be an eved or a mamzer. That's what we're going to see. We'll see that Taisus. That's the point of contention.
It would be obvious that Shaul wouldn't marry them all because they're not shy to marry them. The mom is supposed to marry. So even if he said the first person, obviously doesn't mean someone who's no.
What? I'm saying,
they
but
automatically exclude an eved or mamzer. A blind person doesn't automatically exclude, but a mamzer is not.
Kedushin's typhus. Kedushin is typhus. Rabbi Mamzer is a chai v'lavim. Not again they get divorced, but it's not like it's not shaykh and eved. It's not shaykh. So I'm saying the bottom line is how do you put yourself in a situation like this? Why not? Okay, could be it could be they don't go to war. It could be they don't go to war because only the Miyuchasim went to war. Here's Torah on that. Yiftach Hageladi Dechsev v'hoya hayoytze asher yotze midalse beise. V'hoya hayoytze magic. V'hayoytze asher yotze midalse beise. The first thing that comes out of my house. Now it should have said the first thing that's tahor that came out of my house. First thing that's tahor, right? Yochel afilu David tamei. Maybe a chazer, maybe some chazer would come out of the house. A shibush like Hagen is not only bita. This is why his daughter came out. Now, what happened exactly to his daughter is a huge machlokes. If you're very interested in, there's a Ramban, and at the end of Pashas B'chul Koisai, exactly what happened to his daughter. Some people, the Ramban says that his daughter lived as a recluse. She never got married. In other words, she was like kodesh, but she never got married. But chas v'shalom to say that they offered her as a korban. There are those people who say, in fact, what she was offered as a korban. There are different Yishayim who say that he did bring us a korban. Now, this whole incident could have been avoided. And that's what the Gemara alludes to. Says the Gemara, "V'hainu deka'amalu navi liyisrael." Hatsari, the Yirmiyah is bemoaning the fate of Yiftach's daughter. Yirmiyah is bemoaning the fate of Yiftach's daughter. Hatsari ein begilad, right? Imroife ein sham. Now, what does that mean? Now, just for a second, what does it mean the Navi said to Yisrael? What exactly is this alluding to? So look at Taisus. Last Taisus on the page. Hatsari ein begilad. There's no balsam in Gilad. Imroife ein sham. Kloimar lahata nidroi liyiftach. There was no one available to take off his neder and say, don't kill her. Take off my neder. They don't have to go ahead and kill her. Says the Gemara, "Vahavi Pinchas, v'mayloi holach yiftach etzloi lahata nidroi." Pinchas was there. He could have gone ahead and taken it off. Elamitoich gasis ruchoi, because says the gaiva that went over between Pinchas and Yiftach. Omar loyelach etzloi shani shoifit v'nogid. I'm the head Hansho. I'm the Navi. I'm the Nugget, excuse me. I'm the Nugget. I'm the leader. I should go to him. Eliyava Yetzli, let Pinchas come to me. Pinchas and Pinchas says, Lacy got boy, I should go to him. Da no Navi. Val Yidei Tehei Putura Shayisi Shayru Mata Neder. Upaita so B'Seif Nenshu Shneim. They both got punished. Yiftach Nenash. Listen to this, fellas. Shenaflu Evorov His limbs fell off before he died. It says Vayikbar, he was buried Be'orei Gilad. It doesn't say Be'er Gilad. It says in the cities of Gilad. Every place he would go, he would lose another limb, and they had to bury it there. So never Chesed to Yiftach. Upinchas Nenash, he lost this Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so therefore this pasuk is alluding to what occurred to both of them. Hatzari and Begilad in Reifei, the Reifei is Pinchas, and he didn't count Ein Sham, meaning there's no one to help. So this is Yirmiyahu bemoaning the faith. Now, what happens? Asher loitzi visi v'leidi parti v'lei olsa alibi. What does that mean? Asher loitzi visi. I never commanded anyone to give a human sacrifice. Zeh b'noi shel Meisha melech Moav shnamar. Hivayikach es b'noi abachor asher yimlech tachtav. Meisha, this guy, the king of Moab, took his son, his bachor, who was supposed to go ahead and after his death reign in his stead. He brought him up as a carbon oila. Like says Kadosh Baruch Hu, I never commanded that. V'leidi barti say Yiftach, right? That it ended up at his daughter. V'lei olsa alibi, it never entered my mind. Say Yitzchak ben Avraham. It never entered my mind to bring him out as a carbon, right? It never entered my mind to bring him as a carbon, right? Never. This could say this could flag is going to bring as a carbon. So guys, so how come Kadosh Baruch Hu answered Shaul? How come he answered Eliezer? How come he didn't answer Yiftach? Many pshatim. I'll share with you from the Yefei Toya. It says like this. The MS, Shaul and Eliezer, it was a tefillah. They placed to be talking on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Eliezer says HaKadosh Baruch Hu should go ahead, and even though he didn't ask correctly, his words weren't correct because he left it over he left it open to chance. And even though Shaul left over the chance, they didn't speak correctly, but their kivun was what? Was to be talking on HaKadosh Baruch Hu to answer that tefillah. Yiftach, what would come out of his house is not in the hands of the Rabbi Shalom. It's not a tefillah, but it could have been anything. There's no hashgacha there. Mainly he was answered with his daughter. They say that he had a pet goat and he meant a pet sheep and he wanted that. He thought that because he used to come out to greet him like a dog, and he thought that's what he was going to bring. But again, he should have verbalized, and as a result, it was a very, very, very difficult thing that happened over here. Hashem doesn't control who walks out the door. There's hashgacha there. No, there's a difference between davening to the Rebbeinu Shalom and coming onto the Rebbeinu Shalom, things you can't control, versus happenstance.
What happened to his daughter?
Machlokes. What happened to his daughter? Whether she was born as a carbon or she lived his life as a hermit, a celibate, but she never got married. It's a very, very sad situation. And also the gaiv on both of them. Pinchas lost his nevuah. He lost it because it is. He lost it. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's a very sad story. Very sad story. Anyway, l'chayra, we got a problem over here. Let's go back. When it came to Eliezer, he said maybe it would have been a cripple or it would have been a blind person. When it came to Shaul, they said Eved or Mamzer. Why weren't we worried about Eved or Mamzer? What by Rivka? Why, right? So let's see Taisus. Let's see this Taisus. Yachal afilu chigeres esuma tema. Amayloi noked hacha gabi Eliezer Eved Avram kimo dekama gabi Shaul b'samach. Yachal afilu mamzeres leishivcha. So in other words, so why weren't we worried? Why wouldn't we have that concern? The Amar Rashi mishum the gabi Eliezer leishayach adayim mamzeres. The nitna Torah. Right? It's not Shaykh Mamzeres because the Torah wasn't given yet. What's a Mamzer? A Mamzer is the result of a union of Chayvei Karis. And there was no concept then of, there was Gilei Arroyas. But even though, one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Peinoch is Gilei Arroyas, right? Immorality. But nonetheless, the concept of Mamzeres wasn't around, which is difficult to understand. Why? Because we learned the Gemara Daf Chavches in Masech the Yuma, that Avram Avinu, the Avos kept Kol Torah Kula. So they kept Kol Torah Kula. They also should have what? Mamzeres, right? Yitzchak was the second generation of, right? So that's the point that I wanted to go ahead and speak about based upon. So if you open your phones, I'm going to find it over here. I'll give you my phone in a second. Okay, here we go. Could all see that, guys, on the screen? Yeah. Okay, good. Not the sauerkraut picture. Sauerkraut picture was sent by a Syrian. Okay, so now look, guys, look at the piece. Always Did the others keep the Torah? Did they keep the Torah? No, it's a very good question. Did the others keep the Torah? If you want to look, you have a big screen here. Look. What? In the Masifta. Hikshu Taisus. Madua loy Omar Rabbi. Okay, he asked the Kasha. So let's go down a little bit, right? So go down a few lines, and he answers that what Shemi Eliezer loy hoya psul mamzeres mishum adayin loy nit in the Torah. As of yet, there was no psul because what? Because the Torah was not given yet. So they give another teretz. Let's skip that other teretz. And Hikshu Maritzchias. The Maritzchias says very obvious. Kaimu kol Torah, as we say in Masechta Yuma. The others kept the whole Torah. Maybe the girl be mamzeres. The teretz shebinyani nisuin regarding the things of marital status. Afilu be'arayos gemurim ha'avas leinis haram. When it came, the good they kept the whole Torah, but when it came to arayos, they were not so careful. What's this proof? Kimoshem etzinu sheyakov nasa beizachayos. Yaakov married two sisters, which is Asar. The Amram nasa deidasai, and Amram married his aunt. So you see, this is before Matan Torah. The others kept the Torah, but you see two instances where what? Where they weren't careful about arayos. But they weren't careful. Yaakov marrying two sisters is also after Matan Torah. Marrying your aunt is also after Matan Torah. Good. V'hine nechla rishonim. The Rishonim argue. Madua nasa Yaakov avinu olav shalom shtei achayos. Why did Yaakov marry two sisters? How could he marry two sisters? Very, very famous. There's a good Bar Mokim is what is Psachim Kufyud Tes or Kufyud Zayin, one or the other. Anyway, what does he say? Mashma shlei sfilei kitirat samaritz kosav. The others kept Kol Torah Kula. Even Arayos they kept. But that was only in Eretz Yisrael. But in Chutz La'aretz, they didn't keep it. And Yaakov married in Chutz La'aretz. That's why Rachel had to die. So one of them had to die when they got into Eretz Yisrael, and the Maisa with the Trophim decided it was Rachel and not Leah. Very, very famous Ramban. Mashma Shalei Svila Ketirat Samaritz Chiyas. The Ramban, who was a Rishon, Maritzchias was a later Achrain, right? Clearly disagrees with him because you see, inside Eretz Yisrael, they didn't keep Arayos. Right? So therefore, he says the following. Therefore, Harashba Kosav, Sheisa Bigamara, Kaimam Avinu Erev Tachumim, Kosav Yishmar, da-da-da-da-dun. Keep on going. Says the Rashba, the Eini Yochel Afarish Yosha, I can't explain anymore. Umaskil al Dava Yimtza. In other words, the Rashba just alluded to some Kabbalistic answer. And B'Shalos Jewish Radvaz, Remez Levar Kavanas. He wants to say what the Rashba's Kavana was. Listen, for who here it's the following. Shekivin Sheyakov Gayoram. Yaakov was Megaya Rachel and Leah. Yaakov was Megaya Rachel and Leah. Minatayra Mutta Lisa Shtei Achayas Gayoris. You can marry two what? Two sisters, right? Because once Gershon is Gaia, Kikan Shanoila Dummy. So they're not what? They're not sisters. They're not sisters. Elishraboran Gazru Shleilisa Shteachayas Menaim. The Rabbanim made example, you should marry two maternal sisters. Vafilum Tirtzalema Sheyakov Nizar Afmin Advarim Sheraboran Asidim Lig. So what are you going to say? That the Yaakov was what? Was Machmir, even to keep future Rabbanim Disidin? What? Yudeya Hoya Yaakov Shlahoya Chayas Menaim. They had the same father, they did not have the same mother. There's a din. And the Rabbanon is like It's a very, very nice market. It's very, very nice Indian, right? To go through. So whether the others kept Kol Torah Kula, Smashma, they did. The one teretz, the Maritzchias, they kept Kol Torah, they keep Arayos. The Ramban's Mashma did keep Arayos. And then we would go ahead and be able to go ahead and say that the reason why he was able to marry two sisters, either because he was Megaya them, either it was in Chutz La'aretz, or he was Megaya them, and therefore what? They were not considered sisters. Yes. There's a day, yeah. There's a day they were half sisters. Lovin was their father.
There's a day that they were twin sisters.
Lovin, there's a day twin sisters, right? But there's very chalukei deyas, right?
Let me ask something. What do you mean
again, if they kept the Kol Torah Kula, right? So the others were a different standard. Lavan and that mishpacha was not. They were just they're Benoach, right? They're not the same. They guide them. Shmak. That's a nice knech. That's a nice knech, right? That's a nice little.
They weren't the answer is how do you get even to Lavan's family.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so I thought that was a good digression to a digression. Now back to the farm. Yeah. According to that's according to Ramban, would answer that, right? It was outside of Eretz Yisrael. That would answer the question, right? Yeah, 1,000%. Okay, very good. And it says the Gemara Vaita. Amar Rav Berechia. Says Rav Berechia, about 4 or 5 lines off where it gets wide. Av Knesset Yisrael, Shala Shela Shleigagin. Klai Yisrael, they asked improperly. Because Baruch Hu Shiva K'Hagin, because Baruch Hu answered them properly. Shenemar, V'neido near Dafno Das Hashem, Kishacher Nachain, Moitzai, V'yavoi Ki Geshem Lanu. So we were comparing HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Geshem. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Biti, my daughter, at Shoeles Dava Shepamim Misvakesh. You're asking, comparing me to something that sometimes you ask for, sometimes you don't ask for it. Geshem, when you need it, you need it. When you don't need it, you don't need it. I will be to you something that you always need. Shenemar soil. And what do we say? Tal is something, guys, that you always need it, right? Tal is something you always need it. It's always there. Void shala shalaika. They again ask shalaika hagen. Amr l'fan Rabban Shalom. Simeni kachoisem al libecha, kachoisem al zoyecha. Place me like a signet on your heart, like a signet on your arm. I'm Kadosh Baruch Hu biti. Ashayelis dava shepamim nira, pamim nira. Sometimes you see, sometimes you don't see. Like your arm is covered, your chest can be covered. Ani oisel lecha dava shnira loylam shnemar hein al kapayim chakusayich. Your engraved blood on my chakusayich, on my palms. So therefore, be a shleika hagen. Then the reason what's the reason we brought this in is because rain. Because you compare Kadosh Baruch Hu to rain. We said the rain word, and there you go. Okay, but we don't mind because it's geschmack, right? It's geschmack. It's geschmack to digress. Nope. Back to the farm. Okay, now guys, look back at the Mishnah. There's one line of the Mishnah that stands out as a little different. We had the dialogue between Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer is saying that you start saying Mashav Ruach on day 1, and Rabbi Yeshua is saying on day number 8. And then it says, Ein shoylin es hageshamim, ela samach legeshamim. Who's saying that? We don't know. Just as you don't ask for geshamim, only samach legeshamim. Now, that I would have said is Rabbi Yeshua. Why? Because we said, like Rabbi Eliezer, who says that, I'm not saying you should ask for rain, I'm just saying you mentioned it. So he said, okay, say it the whole year. And therefore, Rabbi Yeshua is retorting, no, you only ask for what? When it's next to it. You only ask for what when it's time. Okay, that's what I would have said. Let's see the Gemara, what the Gemara says. Savrua, the Mishnah held to say, Sha'ala v'askara chadam milsei, that asking for rain and mentioning rain is the same thing. That in the ancient Gesham and so in other words, when you start saying Mashav Ruach, you start saying the same Talamata. Mantana, Amarav Rabbi Yeshua. It's Rabbi Yeshua the Amar, Mishas Hanachasa. When time you put down your lulav, that's when you begin what? Saying Haskara, mentioning, and then you would go ahead what and ask for rain afterwards. Because like Rabbi Eliezer, you're mentioning rain on the first day, and he admitted that I'm not asking for rain, shoylin, I'm not asking mevakesh for rain till a later day. So it says ain't shoylin el shamim is mashma with the hell to say that what it's the same time. So it'll be Rabbi Yeshua, not Rabbi Eliezer. I feel with him Rabbi Eliezer. You can even say Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Sheila lechud vaskar lechud. Mentioning it is on day 1, and sheila asking for it is day number 8. It's a later time. So in the Havamim, you thought it has to be the same time. It's not the same time. Zechira, what we call maske gvus geshamim, is earlier, and sheila is later. Guys, the exact same Gemara, just not Savrua, not that they held to say that from the Mishnah. Ikadiyami Amid Veis, Rabbi Yeshua, Lema Rabbi Yeshua, he, the Amar, Mishas hanachasei, from the time you put down your lulav. Amarava afilu temer Rebbe Eliezer. You can even say it's Rebbe Eliezer. Sheila l'chud v'haskara l'chud. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah and one more line. The last line of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he discusses two things: when you start and when you finish. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ha'over lifnei ateva b'yontiv ha'achron shel chag, someone on Shmini Atzeres by Musif, ha'achron masker, the Bal Musif, a Rishon, and Bal Shachris ein a masker. B'yontiv Rishon shel Pesach, ha'rishon masker, the first day of Pesach, the Bal Shachris does say Mashiv Ruach, and beyond, and ha'achron Musif you stop, and that's the way we pass him. We talk to pass him like that, right? Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ha'over lifnei ateva, Bal Musif, right? Uriminu, ad mosai shoylin esagashanim. Until when do you ask for rain? Guys, be medayik, not maskirin, but shoylin. Until when do you say the same talamat levracha? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ad sheyavar Pesach. You know what? Till Pesach's over or over. Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir says, ad sheyavar Nisan, till Nisan passes. So l'chayri, you have a stira in Rabbi Yehuda. Now, I don't know why you have a stira in Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda was speaking about Haskara, Masha Baruach, and this is speaking about the same Talamat Levracha. L'chal HaPachas, right now we have a kasha. What's the teretz? Says Rav Chisda, I'll give you a teretz. Said Rav Chisda kasha. Says Rav Chisda, no. Rav Chisda like kasha. Kan l'shoyel, kan l'haskir. Mishal shol v'azal. You go ahead and you keep on asking, asking until the end of Pesach. Lahaskir b'yontev rishon pasuk. And when are you going to stop? You're going to stop the first day. So here's the way he answers it. We're speaking about two different things. Guys, outside. We're speaking about two different things. We're speaking about the same talamata, and we're speaking about Mashiv Ruach. Mashiv Ruach, you're going to stop when? On the first day of Pesach. And what are you going to continue till Pesach finishes? You're going to continue to go about and ask for rain. You're going to say the same talamata. Good? Okay. Now, what do we do first? We say Mashiv Ruach, or do we say the same talamata first? What comes earlier? Mashiv Ruach. Considerably earlier, correct? Good. So Ula is going to have a tremendous kasha on Rabbi on this pshat of Rav Chisda. Yeah.
We didn't say the same Talmud on Pesach
What?
I guess, but on
No, we don't.
Well,
Okay.
you potentially could have on Talmud.
Okay, no, but again, you don't say, but you the last day after Chalamoid, then you're right. After Chalamoid, Rashi brings Chalamoid. Rashi says in Chalamoid. Okay, but so now says the Gemara. Listen to this kasha, guys. So Amma Ula, how the Rav Chisda's teretz that you're going to stop saying Mashiv before you stop saying the same Talamata. Kasha is as difficult. Kichoymitz l'shenayim, like vinegar to the teeth, u'ka'oshen le'nayim, and like smoke to your eyes. And that's pretty strong. Uma b'makay she'ena shoyel maskir, in a place where you don't ask. Meaning, at the beginning, we don't ask saying Talamata, but maskir we say Mashiv Ruach. B'makam she'shoyel, when we do say the same Talamata, einay din she'yi maskir. According to you, you're stopping Mashiv Ruach before the She'ela. But we see that Mashiv Ruach always goes before the She'ela. If anything, it should be end after the She'ela. In other words, it would make sense to say the following. It would make sense to say that you would say Mashiv Ruach, you say the same Talamata, then you finish saying the Talamata, and then you finish saying Mashiv Ruach. That would make a lot of sense. But what are you answering? You're answering, no. You're saying, first you go ahead and you start off saying Mashiv Ruach, then you say the same Talamata, yeah? And then what are you doing? You are saying you stop on the first day of Pesach, you stop and saying what? You stop saying that, and you're continuing on to say what? The same Talamata. That doesn't seem to make sense. So if that's the kasha, that is like Kichoymitz l'shinayim u'krosh le'nayim. Yitzi, we're up to on Dal and Amid Beis, about 4 lines get wide, about 5 lines up. Ella Lashon Charata. So we have a kasha, guys. What's a kasha? Kasha is one place Rabbi Yehuda says that you finish the first day of Pesach, and the other place he says until after Pesach. Trey Tanoia, leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. You have two Tanoim according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, let's see Rashi who exactly what the shita is, guys. Let's see Rashi. Trey Tanoi. Chad Omar at Sheyavora Pesach Shoilim and Kol Shekin Shemaskirin. Guys, right? In other words, if I'm going to be saying the same Talamata, you can rest assured you're going to be saying Mashiv Ruach. That's one kind. In other words, the one that says till you finish after Pesach, guys, you're going to be saying Mashiv Ruach till after Pesach. You're not going to stop the first day. Because why? Because Shoylin, again, if I'm going to say the same Talamata till Pesach's over, I will say Mashiv Ruach till Pesach's over, because there's no svara to say that She'ela should extend beyond Haskara. The Chad Amar, no. She'ela Ara Pesach. You know, up to the first day of Shachris of Pesach, you'd say the same Talamata. The Haskara Sheyachal Hasker B'Yontif Masker B'Yontif Rishon Shal Pesach with Tfilas Yetzer U'Musav and Pesach, and you stop in Musaf. And so therefore that's what you would do. You would say that what? You would say that afterwards. So that's the machlokes. Again, according to one, you're saying both simultaneous together until afterwards, and according to the other one, you're going to go ahead and say Sheila up until Pesach, and Haskara you'd say until what? Until the Shachris of the first day. Back in the Gemara. Those are the two. That's the final teretz. That's the final teretz. The Gemara will try two more terutzim. We're going to slug both up. Alama ula trade tonight. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef Amma. Good. Rabbi Yosef is coming to answer the stira again. What's that stira? One says until the beginning of Pesach. One says to the end of Pesach. Rabbi Yosef Amma. My Atshiyavra Pesach. What does it mean Atshiyavra Pesach? Atshiyava shliach tzibur rishon hayared beyond the rishon shel Pesach. Atshiyavra Pesach doesn't mean till the end of Pesach, guys. It means till the shliach tzibur on the first day, right, finishes. That's what it means. Now, guys, the shliach tzibur on the first day of Pesach. What is he saying? We have Shalom Zvart. You're saying Atu b'chaytanu. You're not saying the same Talmud Levracha. How can Rabbi Yosef give this teretz? Rabbi Yosef is saying, you know what it means that you stop saying Atshiyavra Pesach? Atshiyavra, the first day of Pesach, that's when you stop saying the same Talmud. Of course you do. Because you say Atu b'chaytanu. You don't mention Bakashis. You only have 7 brachas. Amalei Abaya. Sheila b'yontiv miyika? Do you have say the same Talmud? It doesn't exist. Amalei. So he said to him, in Shoyel Miturgimin. Yosef said to Abaya, Shoyel Miturgimin, the Miturgimin who translates Elias. Fred the Gemara, Miturgimin Shoyel Davish Ain't Tzarech L'Tzibur. Can the Miturgimin, the one who's going ahead and translating, could he hear something that the Tzibur doesn't need? It's clear, like Ula, that it's two Tanoim. So this teretz, we have two attempted terutzim. Rav Chisda's teretz to say that Sheila l'chud and Haskara l'chud, and you're going to stop Haskara before Sheila. You have the kasha that's kasha kifenis the shinayim, and then we have the Rav Yosef's teretz speaking about the first day of Pesach. When the first they can't be because there's no Sheila on Pesach. Says the Gemara Vayta. Rabbi Omar, a third attempt. Rabbi Omar, my Atshiyavra Pesach. You know what it means? Atshayavar Zman Shchitas Pesach. It means this until it's over the Zman of the Shchitas Pesach. Now Shchitas Pesach, guys, is on Yudalit. Good. So we would stop going ahead and saying, guys, Atshiyavra Pesach means on Yudalit you would stop going ahead saying what? The same Kalamat Levracha. On Yudalit, by Mincha you'd stop saying right, but when you would go ahead and say Mashiv Ruach until Musaf the next day. So what do we have? We have the Haskara after what? After the Sheila. The Sheila is being finished on Erev Pesach, and the Haskara is after Pesach. So this is similar to the beginning. Just like the beginning, the Haskara is around when the Sheila is not around. So to the end, the Haskara is around when the Sheila is not around, because you stopped earlier. You stopped on your Dalit. Fred says the Gemara. Let's get to see the words inside. Rabbi Omar, my Atshiyavra Pesach means Atshayavar Zman Shachris HaPesach, Zman Shchitas HaPesach, which is your Dalit. Then you'd stop asking. However, Haskara would go until the next day. Utchilasai kain saifai. And now you have the same common denominator. Matchilasai masker afal pisha in a shayel. Just like Tchilasai, you mention even though what? You're saying Masha Baruch, even though you're not saying the same Talamata. Avsoifai, so too in the end, Maskir, Erev Pesach, meaning Pesach until Shachris, at least in Shachris, you're being Maskir. Afabisha and Shayel, because you stopped the Shayla the day before and you're Dalid. Sounds great, right? Right? Sounds great, yeah? Not so fast. Amalei, Abaya. Bishlem Tchilasa, when you began Maskir, you began saying Masha Ruach, Haskaranami, Ritzoy, right? Sheilahi. Guys, can you view saying Masha Ruach as a warm-up to the same Talamata? Yeah, ostensibly. We begin when you say Masha Ruach, either the first day or the last day, but it has what to do with rain. It has what to do with rain, right? You're leading up to the rain. So Bishlema, the act of Haskara Masha Ruach, you're saying, because you're segueing into what? The same Talamata, yeah? Now what's your teretz now? You're going to stop saying the same Talamata, Erev Pesach. But you'll still say Haskara. Why in the world would you say Haskara? You don't want the rain anymore. And what's your connection? There's no reason to. Beginning, it makes sense to say Haskara before the same. But to say Haskara, Mashruach, after you finish rain already, there's no swear behind that. It makes no sense. That's the kasha. That's the shlug on Rabbah, guys. Let's see inside. Amoy Abaya. Bishlem at the beginning of by Sukkis, Maskir, Haskaranami, Ritzu Sheilahi. It's Merutza, it makes acceptable the Sheila. Elas Saifai the end by Pesach, you're telling me you stop saying the Sheila a day before you Dalid and Haskari afterwards. Ma Ritzu Sheilika. You should be saying it at all. What do you have to say? Michavarta Kidda guys. You have to say it's correct like Ula. That's Machloikis Tanaim according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda that you start by Musaf and you stop by Shachris. You start by Musaf of what on Shmini Atzeres. We start saying the same time Masha Baruach, and we stop on the first day of what of Pesach after Shachris. Amalei Rabbi Zera Ravasi Umi Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Can Rabbi Yochanan possibly say that? But Tanan, we have a Mishnah. B'shloisha b'Marcheshvan, on the third day of Marcheshvan, Shoyel in Eskashamim. We go ahead and say what? The same Talamata. Rabbi Gamliel Oimer b'Shivaboy, on the seventh day of Marcheshvan, we say the same Talamata. Rabbi Laza says Halacha Rabbi Gamliel. Now, guys, what in the world is this kasha? Two problems with this question. Who paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yochanan. Who paskin like Rabbi Gamliel? Rabbi Laza. What's gate? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Laza. What is he get? What are you asking kasha? These are two Amoraim. They can argue Haikus Morgan. They can argue all the time. Secondly, what was Rabbi Yehuda discussing? Haskara or Sheila? He was discussing Haskara. What is Rabbi Gamliel discussing? What is Rabbi Elazar discussing? Sheila. So you have two. So it's hard to understand what's the most kasha. You're asking two different things. He says, Penny says peanut butter, I say jelly. So good. He's entitled to his right time. And Sveitens, we're not discussing the same things. He's discussing peanut and jelly. We're discussing Haskara versus Sheila. So the Chayred, it's very fair. So the Gemara is going to give both, answer those two truths. Amalei, said Ravasi to Reb Zera. Gavra Karamis. First of all, what are you asking? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, two different people. The Avmi of the Gemara is that Rabbi Elazar was the Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, right? You know that. He was a Talmud Muvik. But Ibay Seima, Loi Kasha, Kan L'Shol, Kan L'Haskir. Kan L'Shol, Kan L'Haskir. So it's two different things. It's not a steer at all. Fred the Gemara of Rabbi Yochanan, the Mokim Sheshoyel Maskir, right? Rashi says that like Rabbi Yochanan says that how can you say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda? No, this is not a stira, but how can you say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda? That you say he says that Sheila is synonymous with Haskara. Rabbi Yehuda guy says you're Haskara, but it doesn't say Sheila. So how can Rabbi Yochanan say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say you begin asking for rain the same day you're masker. You don't say Masha Baruch in the same Talmud in the same day. Or Rabbi Yochanan says you do. How can Rabbi Yochanan, guys, it's an independent kasha. How can Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? That you start saying the same Masha Baruch on what? On the Shmini Atzeres. If you're not going to go ahead and start saying the same Talmud on Shmini Atzeres, he says, because they say the same thing, meaning that there's no, at the same time you say the same Talmud, Masha Baruch, you say the same Talmud. Yet Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say that. He says you only say Mashal Ruach. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you, here's the teretz. And for the Gemara, it'll have socket. When he said that you say Yishoel Maskir, that's only the stopping. You stop at the same time. You stop saying this. That's what we do, guys. We stop at the same time. We stop saying Mashal Ruach and the same Talmud simultaneously, but not the beginning. The beginning is two different things. When you begin the maschel, meaning you saying Mashal Ruach, maschel lishol, you begin saying what at the same Talmud. Pasuk milishoel, when you stop saying the same Talmud, pasuk milahasker, so you got a problem because he says the beginning also, guys. Guys, he says the beginning also. Eloi kasha, hadlon v'halahu. There's a difference between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. What's the difference? In Bavel, they would leave their crops out to dry. They would be out there longer. Since they'd be out in the field longer, they wanted to delay, so they would ask later on. But in Eretz Yisrael, where the crops weren't out, where it took place, so they began asking earlier. Look at Rashi. Halam v'halahu. Rashi says, about 8 lines up from the bottom, the Bnei Bavel sheyesh lanu tfua upeiris besada kol tishrei ein maskirin at shiva b'marcheshin. It's there the whole tishrei. You don't ask the marcheshin. The sham shoylin kidam Rabbi Yochanan maskul haskal maskul. That's when you ask. V'halahu b'nei Eretz Yisrael the koitzrin b'nisan v'oisrin b'tishrei. We gather in Tishrei. Maskirin b'yont of Achron Rabbi Yehuda. Then you begin mentioning Rabbi Yehuda the Amar Avasi halacha kamoso. You would go ahead and begin asking them. Ma'ishnal Lidon says the Gemara, the Isla Peri Bidabra, the Dunami Isla Oila Regalim. We also have Oila Regalim. So L'chayr, we should delay, guys. We should delay till Gimel to give the people time to go home. In Eretz Yisrael, they should have time to go home because they're Oila Regal. So no Kikam Rabbi Yochanan Bisman Shein Beis Hamikdash Kayim. When does Rabbi Yochanan say this? Dafka Bisman Shein Beis Hamikdash Kayim. But Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayim, you would ask for later also to delay that they shouldn't get wet. Now that you arrived at this distinction between between the Beis Hamikdash, you don't have to come out to Bnei Bavel. To do it's supposed to speak about Eretz Yisrael. V'lei kasha kan bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim kan bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash kayim, guys, they would wait till Zion. Time Ein Mishul Kayim, they would go from the Shmini Atzeres. Let's make it to the Mishnah. V'anon de'islei trei yume hechi avdinon. We who have 2 days, what do we do? When do we start? When do we start saying it? Samarav, Maskal b'musafim, you go ahead and you begin by Musaf. We begin saying by Musaf. Upoisik b'mincha, and you stop saying it by Mincha. Arvis v'shachris. The choice of Musafim. Here's the kasha, guys. Our Shmini Atzeres is a suffix, right? We don't know. But we know one thing. We know you start saying it in Musaf, yeah? So here's what you do, guys. Listen, here's what you do. You say it by Musaf, you stop by Mincha, you stop by Shachris, Ma'ariv, you stop by Shachris, then you say it by Musaf. Good? So that's what he says. So now, Shmuel's got a problem with that. You know why? Because Musaf and Mincha are the same day. So if you're going to say Shmini Atzeres by Mincha, by Musaf, and not by Mincha, then you're making a contradiction in the day itself. So Shmuel's Eitz is going to be, you say it by Musaf and Mincha, and then you don't say it by Ma'ariv and Shachris. All right, let's see the Gemara inside. But now, of course, we don't pass in this way. Okay, again, this is the. I'm almost finished. All right, so now, so therefore, us who have this 2 days, the anon the islay treyume hechav dinam amarav. Here's what we do: maschil b'musafim. We begin by musaf. Upoisik b'mincha arvis v'shachris. The chayz musaf, and then you stop by mincha musaf again. Amul Shmuel poiku b'amru lahu la'aba. Go tell Abba. Go tell Abba Richter. That was his name. Acha she'asiyasei kodesh taseu chayil. Once you made that day kodesh by saying it by musaf, how can you make it chayil by mincha? Elo Amar Shmuel maskil b'musafin u'b'mincha. You say it by musaf and mincha, then upoisik arvis v'shachris. The chayz maskil b'musafin. Okay, that was his eitzah. Amid Aleph. Rav Amar Kima Shehiskel Shavena Paisik. There's no going back, guys. Once you begin Mashal Ruach, that's it. The Chenom Rav Sheshes Kima Shehiskel Shavena Paisik. Once you begin, that's it. The Afrav Hodebei Rav also had Charata from his original psak that you say it by Musaf and stop by Mincha Shachris and Shachris. Dom Rav Chananel Amar Rav Moina Esrim Ve'achad Yoim. Count 21 days from Rosh Hashanah, guys. 21 days from Rosh Hashanah is Shmini Atzeres. Kederach Shemaina Asar Yomim Mirosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, like you count 10 days from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Umaskil the Kima Shehiskul Shebene Paisik. So and Amar Rav said this. The Hilchos like Kima Shehiskul Shebene Paisik. Once we begin saying it, despite the fact that about it, it's a suffix. We continue. Thank you all for coming and listening. Appreciate it.